When an avoidant person gives someone great importance in their life, whether they admit it or not, deep inside, they begin to depend on them. This dependence is not expressed openly, nor will they ever confess it, but every silence, every behavior, and every return points to the same truth. There are some people they simply cannot live without. An avoidant builds walls for their protection, creates distance, and lives with the belief that anyone can survive without them. But the truth is, they themselves cannot survive without certain people. No matter how much they pretend to be strong, deep down they know these few people are irreplaceable. This weakness is not limited only to love or relationships. It is an emotional dependency they never admit, yet they definitely feel. Philosopher Alain de Botton once said, "We are all in some ways slaves to the person whose opinion can alter our self-image." For the avoidant, these people hold that very power. They can change their world. In this video we will explore the types of people who are not just a memory for the avoidant, but a silent weakness, the ones they inevitably return to, no matter how much time passes. The empath who sees through the mask. When an avoidant meets someone who can see behind their emotional mask, no matter how strong or self-sufficient they pretend to be, something inside them begins to shift. In the avoidance world, most people are fooled by surface behavior. They mistake silence for indifference, distance for dislike, and boundaries for coldness. But the empath is the one who can read the question hidden inside the silence and feel the pain inside the distance. These are the people who can tell the difference between a smile on the face and the exhaustion in the eyes. They know that when an avoidant says, "I'm fine," it often means, "I'm breaking." Philosopher Kierkegaard once said, "The deepest form of despair is to be unaware of having it." For an empath, this despair is visible, even if the avoidant continues to deny it. To the avoidant, this ability feels strange at first, then threatening, and finally irreplaceable. Because in this world, there are very few people who can know you better than you know yourself, and still choose not to judge you. The empath has a natural radar that detects the truth behind fake bravery, forced smiles, and carefully chosen words. This is the moment when the avoidant's defensive wall weakens for the first time. They think, "Why does this person read me so well?" In the beginning, they try to avoid it. They create more distance, because vulnerability feels dangerous. But with time, they realize that being seen by the empath is not a burden, but a rare comfort, a mirror that not only reflects their reality but accepts it. Philosopher Alain de Botton once said, "A good listener is rare because real listening requires suspending the ego." The empath does exactly this. They set aside their own ego to listen to the avoidant, connecting with the person beneath the mask, not the character they've created for the world. When life brings a crisis, or when everyone else gives up and walks away, it is this empath who remains. For the avoidant, this presence is not just comfort, it is survival. And that is why, no matter how far they go, they always return to this person, because they know this is the one who never forgets and never changes, the version of them hidden behind the mask. The unshakable loyalist, those who carry dependent personality traits. For an avoidant, loyalty is both a comfort and a trap. They may push people away, test boundaries, or create long stretches of silence, but deep inside, they carry a quiet awareness of who will still be standing there when the dust settles. The unshakable loyalist is one of those rare individuals. No matter how many emotional storms pass, no matter how much distance the avoidant creates, these people remain steady, patient, and unshaken. Psychologist Robert Bornstein, who studied dependent personality traits for decades, noted that such individuals are driven by an intense fear of abandonment combined with a deep need for connection. But to an avoidant, this isn't perceived as weakness, it's seen as reliability. The loyalist becomes a kind of fixed star in the avoidance universe, always in the same place, no matter how many times they drift away. Seneca, the Stoic philosopher, once wrote, "Loyalty is the holiest good in the human heart." For the avoidant, the loyalist embodies this truth, not in grand speeches, but in consistent presence. They are the ones who answer the call even after months of silence, who forgive without demanding lengthy explanations, and who somehow manage to keep their door open even after being hurt. But this loyalty is not always conscious on the avoidant's part. Philosopher Hannah Arendt observed that we often only recognize the value of constancy when it disappears. Until that moment, the loyalist's presence can feel like background air, unnoticed, yet essential. When the avoidant loses such a person, the absence is far heavier than they expect. Psychotherapist Nancy McWilliams notes that people with strong dependent traits often bond deeply with those who are emotionally distant, almost as if drawn to the challenge of breaking through their walls. This dynamic is what keeps the loyalist tied to the avoidant long after others have left. To the avoidant, this persistence feels rare, almost irreplaceable, and it plants a quiet seed of dependency they will never openly admit. When the loyalist finally does step away, it is not a dramatic exit, it is the slow, quiet withdrawal of someone who has given everything and can no longer give more. And here is where the avoidant feels the loss most sharply, because the one person they believed would always remain has chosen otherwise. French philosopher Simone Weil once said, "To be rooted is perhaps the most important and least recognized need of the human soul." The loyalist was that root for the avoidant, and losing them is not just losing a relationship, but losing a sense of stability that made their detachment possible in the first place. This is why, no matter how far they roam, avoidants often circle back to the loyalist. It is not just love or nostalgia, it is the pull of the one bond that withstood every test, and the quiet realization that they may never find such loyalty again. The safe confidant, the one who holds their truth without a weapon. For most avoidants, vulnerability is a foreign country, one they rarely visit, and never without an exit plan. They are experts at sidestepping personal questions, deflecting with humor, or keeping conversations focused on you instead of themselves. But every now and then, someone appears who feels different. Someone whose presence carries no judgment, no hidden agenda, no sharp edges. This is the safe confidant, the rare person in front of whom an avoidant finally dares to set down their armor. The safe confidant becomes the first keeper of truths the avoidant has never spoken aloud: childhood wounds, failed relationships, the moments they felt small or powerless. It is not an easy leap. Trust for them is built molecule by molecule, but with the safe confidant, the air feels lighter, safer, as if their words will not be turned into weapons later. Philosopher Michel de Montaigne once wrote, "The greatest thing in the world is to know how to belong to oneself." But avoidants often struggle to belong to themselves because so much of their identity is hidden behind walls. Speaking to the safe confidant is, in a way, their first act of self-belonging, letting another person see the unedited version of who they are. Psychologist Carl Rogers, known for his work on unconditional positive regard, argued that people open up only when they feel completely accepted. The safe confidant embodies this principle effortlessly. They don't interrupt to fix, don't rush to offer advice, and don't treat vulnerability like gossip. Instead, they hold it with a kind of reverence, as if the story being shared is something sacred. The avoidant often doesn't realize the significance of this until much later. In the moment, they may think, "I'm just telling them something small," but the truth is, they rarely, if ever, share these pieces with anyone else. And once they've crossed that threshold, the bond changes. The safe confidant becomes tied not just to happy memories, but to the avoidant's deepest, most fragile self. The philosopher Seneca warned, "It is more shameful to distrust our friends than to be deceived by them." For the avoidant, trust has always been a calculated risk. But with the safe confidant, it feels less like a gamble and more like a quiet necessity. They might not share everything, but the things they do share carry the weight of years of silence. When the safe confidant is gone, whether through distance, conflict, or simply life moving on, the avoidant feels it as a hollow space that no casual connection can fill. Others may offer attention, even affection, but few offer that same sanctuary where their hidden self could breathe without fear. And so, even if years pass, the avoidant will often find themselves circling back. Not because they need someone to fix them, but because they remember the rare feeling of being safe enough to be fully seen, and they know that kind of safety is not something the world hands out twice. The anchor during chaos, the steady hand when the world falls apart. Avoidants often believe they are built to weather storms alone. They pride themselves on their self-reliance, their ability to handle it without leaning on anyone. But life has a way of testing even the strongest walls, and when those storms come, there is one type of person who quietly becomes their lifeline, the anchor during chaos. This is the person who remains steady when everything else feels unsteady. They are not loud rescuers or dramatic saviors. They don't rush in with grand gestures or speeches. Instead, they offer something far more valuable: consistency. Whether the avoidant is dealing with a breakup, financial hardship, family conflict, or even their own internal battles, the anchor shows up in a way that feels unshakable. These individuals have what psychologists call nurturing caretaker tendencies. Even if they are hurting themselves, they make space for the avoidant's pain. It is not that they are unaffected by their own struggles, they simply carry a quiet resilience that allows them to steady others without collapsing entirely. Philosopher Marcus Aurelius once said, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." The anchor during chaos embodies this truth. They can't control the storms in the avoidant's life, but they can control how they show up, calm, grounded, and unwavering. This steadiness becomes a rare form of safety for someone who is usually allergic to emotional dependence. Avoidants may resist leaning on anyone, but in moments of crisis, they find themselves returning to the anchor almost instinctively. It might be a late-night call, a quiet visit, or simply sitting together without speaking. In those moments, the avoidant realizes, often without admitting it, that they are relying on someone else's stability to keep from drowning. The philosopher Epictetus wrote, "It's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters." The anchor's reaction to chaos is what makes them unforgettable. They don't panic, they don't disappear, and they don't turn the situation into a reflection of their own needs. Instead, they create a space where the avoidant can breathe. Over time, this role becomes deeply embedded in the avoidant's emotional memory. Even if they drift apart, even if the avoidant pulls away as they often do, the image of that calm presence during their hardest moments lingers. They may go months, even years without contact, but when life tilts again, their mind circles back to the same safe harbor. The truth is, for the avoidant, chaos often magnifies their isolation. But the anchor is living proof that there are people who can stand in the storm without running away, and once the avoidant has experienced that, they know they've found something irreplaceable, a steady hand in a world that too often feels unstable. And so, no matter how far they wander, they carry the memory of the anchor. Because deep down they know storms will always come, but very few people can hold you steady while you weather them. The rare challenger, the one who pushes without breaking. For most people in the avoidant's life, the safest route is to tiptoe around their walls. They either respect the distance too much or push against it too hard, and both extremes make the avoidant retreat even further. But then there's a rare type of person who manages to do something extraordinary. They understand the avoidant's boundaries, yet they also refuse to let those boundaries become a prison. This is the rare challenger. The rare challenger doesn't attack the avoidant's defenses. They don't lecture, force intimacy, or demand change overnight. Instead, they approach with a balance that is almost impossible to master, a deep empathy for why the avoidant protects themselves, paired with a quiet insistence that staying locked away is not the only option. Philosopher Søren Kierkegaard once said, "To dare is to lose one's footing momentarily, not to dare is to lose oneself." The rare challenger lives by this truth. They dare to nudge the avoidant out of their emotional hiding, even if it risks temporary discomfort, because they know the greater risk lies in never growing at all. These people have secure attachment traits. They don't crumble when the avoidant pulls back, nor do they chase in desperation. They stand steady, sending a clear message: "I see you, I understand why you guard yourself, but I also believe you are capable of more." That belief is rare for the avoidant, because most people either give up on them or enable their avoidance. The rare challenger's power lies in subtle moments. It's the friend who notices when the avoidant is avoiding a conversation and gently says, "I think you're holding back, and I'm here when you're ready." It's the partner who listens without judgment, but still asks the questions that matter, even if they make the avoidant pause. Philosopher Aristotle spoke of eudaimonia, the idea that a fulfilled life requires the cultivation of one's virtues through challenge and growth. The rare challenger, whether they know it or not, becomes part of that process for the avoidant. They refuse to let fear dictate the avoidant's emotional world. At first, the avoidant might resist, maybe even push them away harder than others, but over time the steady combination of understanding and gentle challenge starts to break the cycle. The avoidant begins to realize this person isn't trying to take control, they're inviting them into a bigger, more connected life. And here's the irony, the avoidant may only fully appreciate the rare challenger after they're gone. Because these people are so uncommon, their absence is glaring. Once they experience someone who can both respect their boundaries and expand them, they find it nearly impossible to replace. In a world where most either keep a distance or break through too forcefully, the rare challenger is a rare middle ground, a person who pushes without breaking, who dares without abandoning, and who quietly shows the avoidant that safety and growth can exist in the same space. The avoidant's strength is not as absolute as they want the world to believe. Behind the walls, the silence and the distance, there are threads, invisible but unbreakable, that tie them to certain people. These are the ones who saw them clearly, challenged them gently, held them in chaos, and stayed loyal when others walked away. Philosopher Epictetus once said, "We are not disturbed by things, but by the views which we take of them." For the avoidant, losing these rare people is not just about the absence of comfort, it's about facing the truth that the people they once took for granted cannot be replaced by any new connection. They might spend years convincing themselves they're fine without them. They might distract themselves with new faces, new routines, even new relationships. But the echo always returns, that undeniable awareness that their life was different when those people were in it. And that's why they often come back. Not because they suddenly change in an instant, but because they realize that survival without those people is only half life. It's living without the rare connections that made them feel seen without being trapped, loved without being controlled. If you've been one of those people, remember this, your worth was never defined by their absence or their return. You were the exception, the anchor, the mirror, and the safe place. And even if they never say it out loud, they know it.